Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. Are camps being thoughtful and intentional enough about climate change?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
A big thanks to our sponsors who make the CampHacker podcast possible. Imagine camp registration software that actually gives you more time to do what you love. With UltraCamp, you can effortlessly track attendance, manage staff, streamline registration, and more. Explore now at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Why spend hours on your schedules only to find mistakes and missed activities for your campers? Let Camptivities do the heavy lifting and help you create the best schedule yet, without the mistakes and in less time. Come check out Camptivities, specifically designed for camps by camp people. Find out more at camptivities.com.
Hey, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp, Camptivities, and the brand new camp recruiting and retention playbook from Joanna Warren Smith and me. I'm Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp marketing and strategy consultant.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I am the founder of Camp Highlight, a sleepaway camp for kids who have queer parents. It's Dr. Jill Biden's favorite camp, and I am a camp consultant and so happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danny Sudman, and I'm the founder and executive director of Green Camps, a nonprofit launched to support any camp in accessing the benefits of sustainability.
Danny, welcome back to CampHacker. We're so grateful you're joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us, last time we talked a little bit about your camp history. I want to dig in, just in the intro here, I want to dig in a little bit about what you wanted to accomplish when you created Green Camps.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I often think about envisioning like what a model sustainable camps look like. So if we were to build a camp that was like everything modeling sustainability, I think helping camps create that vision for themselves. So what does it look like for your individual camp to be, quote, sustainable? We really want to empower camps to go through that process. What's the proverb about teaching someone how to fish versus learning how to fish on your own? So we really facilitate that process in order to do that.
Great. And Danny, but I want to make sure I don't forget, I'll do this again at the end, but if people want more information, how do they find you?
Yeah, greencamps.org is our website. You can find tons of information there. And then most social media channels at Go Green Camps, Facebook and Instagram. We try to stay pretty active there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we're grateful you're back, Danny. Although I know a topic that you think about all the time, but again, not the cheeriest of topics today, but I know it's your life's work. So I'm grateful to have your wisdom in this discussion today. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
We are talking today about climate change. As listeners in the last year will know, there have been a number of topics that I spoke about at a presentation at the OCA about topics that camps are not talking about. We had a discussion, Chris and I had a discussion in the late fall talking about who camps are serving and who we are not serving. We're going to be talking about AI and what its effect on camp is going to be. But today we really want to focus on climate change. I am very concerned that we are not addressing this directly enough, that we have sort of figured that the environmental education work that we do and our good recycling programs are good enough for us as camps, and I don't believe that they are. Danny, you had a really interesting story that I wanted you to start us off with today, if you could, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trying to think about, how do we relate this idea of climate change into practical examples and case studies for camps to relate to. My background in camping, I moved to California and I worked on Catalina Island from 2006 through 2013-ish. And over that time, there were a lot of droughts and fires going on in California. And we were directly impacted by that numerous times, from smoke from fires on the mainland drifting over. But more directly, there was a fire on Catalina Island, which knocked out the entire power infrastructure, which is routed all the way across the island to where we were on Howland's Landing on the west end of the island, or the best end of the island, as we would call it. So for about 3 weeks, we were directly out of power. The first probably 4 to 5 days of that, we had zero power. And it was an interesting time. We had guests on camp, and it was an interesting, like, oh, well, this just happened really quick. And not something that you would necessarily have direct planning for. Although we did have some things in place to help keep us going, and we managed to avert that situation and hopefully learn some lessons from that experience as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. We lived through 4 days without power. When the East Coast went without power about 15 years ago, there was a cascading power outage. And, we're for the first couple of days, we were thinking, I think the hardest part is to wash this many dishes, because we had an independent power on our water pump. So we were able to get water. But then we realized that we wouldn't have enough water to handle the sewage. And that's when things started to get really sweaty for us, is dealing with all of that. So it is, when you go through it yourself, it certainly brings it home. I wanted to spend some time starting with the things that I want people to start to affect and plan for, and then we'll talk about some solutions at the end. Chris, has this been a discussion for you in your work at all?
Only insofar as the weather. Mm-hmm. I've been going to camps. I've been working at camps for 30 years. And I have to say, in that period of time, it sounds insane. In that period of time, I've been doing the same thing, the same time of year, every year, for 3 decades. Yep. And I have to let you know, the weather has shifted. The pattern has shifted. I mean, you can argue whether it's, I know it's definitely wetter and it's definitely hotter. Mm-hmm. And only insofar we talk about these things, as I've noticed over the past decade, there's a lot more talk. We've always talked about getting water into the kids. Now it's like the number 1, 2, and 3 thing that we talk about in training. We keep stressing it in the in-service as well. And I can remember a time when I was a counselor where that wasn't really on our minds, right? There was other concerns. Yep. So when this was on the schedule to talk about today, that's the first thing that came to my mind, because it does affect, it affects the way that we, staff-wise, it affects the order of the things that we talk about in training. We, at our Camp Pilot, we rent land, we don't own it. So I am curious for those who own camps, like what they are going through, and always, because, intentionality is my thing, how they're preparing for the future. Because I mean, and I don't want this whole thing to be a downer, but the future is bleak for climate change. I mean, it's happening. It's going to keep happening. And whether we can slow down or stop it will be a discussion for our children's children. But for right now, it's happening. So I'm interested in this discussion so much, because I think it's something that we need to prepare for, especially since our industry pretty much, the way that we think about it when we think about camp, is an outdoor sort of thing. Like, we're at the mercy of the elements. I'm being dramatic, but you know what I mean. Well,
but it is certainly a part of this industry's self-image, is that we're outside. And we are kind of, a lot of camp people see themselves as the rugged outdoors people. Like, we're outside no matter what the weather is. We're going to play in the rain. We're going to be outside in the heat. And
just to cut you off there, Travis, it's in our own self-concept, but also the public's concept of the industry. So this becomes a marketing issue as well, because if we have this idea, I mean, if you just Google image, camp images, it's going to be people outside. Excuse me. And I wonder, going forward, if parents or groups are going to be more likely to sign up their kids for long periods of time, knowing that there's this climate chaos that's sort of in it. So it's something that, again, bringing back, how are we preparing for this is going to be part of our materials. Just like, how do we get water into the kids as part of our trainings now?
Yep. And how do we cool our kids off has to be part of the training 100% too. So a couple of things. One of the first real signs for me in my experience, and I grew up working at a camp 3 hours north of Toronto, so fairly far north compared to most of our listeners. And one of the first things that we noticed was the bugs changing. So it started with West Nile, and then it became ticks that we didn't really have ticks with Lyme in that time. But that just has kept moving further north. Those kinds of insect-borne diseases has been moving north, and I think some personal experience too. A lot of the East Coast, we're recording in January 2024. A lot of the East Coast in the beginning of the summer 2023 experienced a lot of smoke problems that the East Coast had not experienced before, that Danny has lived through from his time in California. But those are all things that we're going to have to plan and prepare for, because they're only going to get worse. So I wonder, just to get this going, let's get this part out of the way. Danny, what are some of the things that you think that camps really need to be planning for in the things that are going to happen at their camps that's going to make them hard to run their camp or run programs effectively?
Yeah, that's such a challenging question because, and you kind of touched on this, I think it's so regional.
Yep.
In the impacts that different camps are going to be facing. And so I think research can really help shed light on some of the trends that we're seeing in shifting climates and how that's changing and impacting different places. Again, you mentioned it's January. I heard a story this morning. There's no snow in Montana right now. It's wet and there's no snow. So I think different regions are going to be impacted differently. So the research for that, and there's a lot of great resources. In preparation for this, I was looking into climate resilience and assessment planning and such. We do a lot of assessments and planning for camps to go green and model sustainability. But it's pretty complex. I mean, there's not really a simple solution to know, like, do I need to be planning for forest fires, for drought, for heavy rains? What is it that we're planning on? And I think we're starting to see those trends come in. And so being being active and engaged with your community, I have resources that we're developing with the Environmental Protection Agency, and I reached out to my contact, and I think this is something that we can collaborate together to really just help keep the camp community informed. And on the button to know, like, how to prepare for that. But generally speaking, I think having a conversation is the first step. And it's a hard conversation. You touched on that at the beginning. And, I've been running green camps for about 11 years now. And I've never really pushed from the climate resilience approach because it's scary. And sustainability is already such a hard thing for a lot of camps to swallow on top of the other things that we're doing. But I think having the conversation and being real about it is really important. And I think the camp industry has done a really good job about having those hard conversations. So let's get the right educated people and collaborative partners to the table so that we can start knowing exactly what it is that we're doing. So sorry if I kind of dodged your question specifically there, but...
Well, I do. I mean, I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to talking about resources and the work that you have done on this. But I want to talk about things because I want people to specifically think about the things that can happen to them. I take your point; it's regional, but one of the weirdest things about regional is that our regions aren't the same as we're used to. That's all changing, like the bugs and ticks and things that I was talking about before. Some of the other things that I've been thinking about, I've done a couple of not really environmental sustainability, but business sustainability studies in the last 3 years with camps, and have been working with them and their boards. And some of the things that definitely came up was heat mitigation. That, one of the sort of most scornful things I've heard from longtime camp pros is camps that build buildings with air conditioning. And I think we'll have to accept that that's just a safety thing at this point.
You can't not. At this point, it's not safe for the kids. It's not safe for the staff. Which is so weird, because I would have been one of those people 20 years ago being like, come on, air conditioning. Well, come on. What is this? A country club? But when the temperature gets to 99 degrees and the kids want to play soccer, and you have to be like, that's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think an air conditioner in a cabin is kind of a Band-Aid, though, because if your cabin's not really well insulated, you don't have a high efficiency HVAC system, then you're going to run into other challenges from energy, from the grid that we're facing. I mean, there's lots and lots of happening in energy utilities around that problem. Like, as the temperature rises, our demand and the pressure on the grid is getting bigger and bigger, and that's going to cause that grid to fail. And so if we don't have the electricity to run those AC units, we're kind of back to ground zero or worse off, actually.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I think
Please.
this is another thing for camps is the light bill. Between COVID and poor air quality, everyone invested in air purifiers, right? Air circulators. Now temperatures are on the rise. Now we got to think about air conditioning. And this is always my fear when it comes to camping. I always feel like we're in the last age of summer camp, which it keeps me up at night.
Mhm.
But it's one of these things where it's like, because of these issues, bills will continue to rise. And at this point, and when we're talking about, depending on the region, multiple issues, if it's heat, if it's bugs and having to invest in netting, if it's water issues, right? And you have to get some pumps or something, it's at some point, the cost of these things is going to be too expensive. I don't know why I started going on this path because I don't have a solution. I'm just like dooming and glooming. So it's just something, a thought that I had. I wanted to throw into the soup, but I think that's why preparation is key. Also, I want to throw this in just because maybe we can have this conversation. Newer camps tend to use other spaces that aren't necessarily outdoor spaces. And, as we think about, like, I'm thinking about camps that exist on college campuses or community centers or in other municipal buildings.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is that where camp is headed? If the outdoors becomes inhospitable, and everyone I know this is not going to happen in the next 5 to 7 years, but as outside becomes more challenging, let's say, like, what does that retreat indoors look like for the industry?
And I don't think that it's going to, I agree, I don't think it's going to become inhospitable in the next 5 to 7 years, but there are going to be way more days that are inhospitable, that we can't have kids running around, that we can't have kids out in the temperature. So, but the thing you said earlier, Danny, really made, like, air conditioning is essential for health, but it is also part of the problem. And with power draw, and then camps that are without power for a long time kick in big propane generators or big natural gas generators and are just contributing more problems to it. So I think having power. So let's just talk about some basics. I want to move to solutions as soon as we can.
Sure.
I want to get out of this mode as soon as we can. But so I think power is going to be a problem. Weather, storms, and severity of storms is going to be a problem. Heat, bugs, smoke, and air quality, because we're getting other air quality problems, not just necessarily from fires. Are there any other sort of big picture things that are going to impact camp, Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. I think water is going to be it is already the next big thing. I mean, look what's happening in the Southwest in the United States, where, we're fighting over this resource. It's going to become more valuable than oil, is what's predicted as we move forward on that. And, as that train of water is being picked up upstream and it's lacking downstream, then it's going to impact some more than others. So the access to water, and then also water quality as well. I think with more, pollution in the environment, the air quality you mentioned, that all impacts the water quality, which then comes down into our health of our staff and of our campers. And to make sure that we're able to provide safe environments, I think water quality, to be able to provide that's going to be really important. Flooding, I guess, just mitigation of flooding, because you can just wash everything away. Topsoil is one of our most valuable resources. Interesting fact, it takes about 100 years for the natural process of decomposition to create just 1 inch of topsoil. And so all these big floods and all this, it's washing that topsoil away, which food production becomes an issue with that as well. The other end, we talked about drought resilience a little bit. And then food production. I mean, that's directly associated with this as well. The investment in energy and water to produce the food and the climate impacts of food production. And then the opposite of that, the waste that's generated from that food as well. Is going on there as well.
Every single one of these things is $, $, $,
That's what I was just thinking. While you were talking, Danny, I was like, oh man, people are going to hear this and then want to run for the hills and get a part-time job at Barnes and Nobles or some small bookstore and just call it a lifetime.
Well, and I know we're not getting the solutions piece of it, but to me, I see dollar signs, but I see opportunity to save money. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of
Okay.
things that are actions and solutions, and by understanding these things and being educated on what these challenges are and how to take those challenges on, I think we can save a lot of money. I think there's some financial opportunities involved here. Um,
Can
Now,
you
there's
talk? Can
also
you hit on just like one or two of those, just so people listening could like have something to hang a hat on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mentioned like insulation in buildings is such an
Mhm.
easy way to trap the conditioned air that we're pumping in. What my mom would always say, "Were you raised in a barn, leaving doors open?" And but even if doors and windows are closed, if you don't have good insulation, that air is just going to leak right out. Um, I think for food production to be able to capture food waste, and instead of just sending it to the landfill, like that's a valuable resource. There's a lot of dollars and cents in that food waste, the top of the cantaloupe rinds or the apple cores, to be able to process that and create compost that you can then grow more food. There's some big opportunities, and camps are already capitalizing on this stuff. There are a lot of camps that have some really good food production processes, and maybe they're not necessarily making gold out of it, but they're feeding their campers. They're offsetting a lot of their basic costs there as well. For rainwater capture is another big way that the water, and then some states like I think Colorado, it's actually illegal. Maybe they've changed these laws a little bit, but you're not allowed to capture the rain because the people downstream, you're taking it out of the underground wells that would necessarily be replenished, recharged by the rain falling down. So, but in moderation, to be able to capture rainwater for those times when it's a little bit more challenging to get those things. Those are a couple examples there.
Yeah. I think one of the things I hope that people, right, other than the dollar sign, I hope what people take away is that it's worth investing now, because it'll be cheaper to do it now than it'll ever be. And the things that make it worth that can have a positive impact include insulation, thinking about passive cooling versus air conditioning, thinking about power. We have been probably 10 or 15 years on our power system. The cost of power is different at different times of day depending on the draw. So if there's lots of a warm day, there's lots of businesses running air conditioning. It's during the day, it's more expensive than at night. And I think that we're just on the cusp of the right battery technology that we're going to be able to store power overnight when it's cheap. And I think certainly most electrical systems are moving to a time of day pricing plan. And there's some of that. I think there's also great opportunities to invest. There were more subsidies in Canada than there are now. There are great subsidies in the States for alternative power stuff, and investing in some of those things too.
Yeah, and the investment piece of it is challenging because for a lot of solutions, there's financial. Now, what's free is behavior change, and I think that's something that we can have these. If it's hard to have these conversations because we don't want. We talk about the emotional impact, and there's studies that show the emotional impact of having these conversations with kids and how traumatizing it can be to talk about the global scale and impact, and what the world's going to look like in 2050 or even sooner beyond whatnot. But I think that we have a great opportunity as a camp industry to because we're really good at that 21st century learning skills, that set to be able to have really productive conversations and to be able to model these solutions in our camps. So we can take and do small scale solutions to highlight and say, here's how we can have these really hard conversations. And we can say, hey, we're still sending waste to the landfill. Like that's just the reality of the situation. We're not going to be zero waste next summer, but these are the steps that we're taking to do it. And it opens up the conversation to have a healthy conversation and educate our campers and our staff members on what's happening here. The other thing I would say, our staff are probably way more educated and aware of this stuff than we are. And so there's some great opportunities to involve them in that process as well. And And then to the financial part, I think this brings to be able to highlight these things. I think people might be well, I've heard from people and investors and organizations that want to invest in this stuff, to see the change happen and allow the camp industry to really model and show the world like what the opportunities are here.
Every year it's the same thing. Lots of hours spent working on the daily schedules only for there to be mistakes, missed activities, lots of stress, and upset. Why is this so difficult? There's got to be a better way. There is. It's Camptivities, an activity scheduler made specifically for camps by camp people. Group scheduling or camper scheduling, they've got you covered. There's different day schedules. That's not a problem. It's auto scheduling, elective scheduling, batch scheduling. Just schedule the way that works for you, your camp, and the way you run things. With over 50 reports, you'll be able to see the data easily. When a parent calls and says, my camper didn't get an activity week 1, pull up the group activity tracker and see exactly when that activity was scheduled all summer long. Figure out and be able to tell that parent this is when it's going to happen next. Modernize the way you do activity scheduling. Make it easier to collaborate with team members, get rid of the mistakes, and make sure your campers are getting to all of the activities they want to. They would love to show you the next big thing in camp. Don't wait until the new year. Start the onboarding process now and save 15% for this coming season. Visit camptivities.com to set up a time to chat with them. Let them help you get away from your desk and back out at camp.
Danny, I was just wondering, I do a lot of DEI work, and a lot of it is working through people's resistance to invest. Right. And my case is always like, in the future, like was said earlier, this is the cheapest it's going to be to do it right now. Like, what would you say to a camp who's like, listen, I've got so much to deal with. The washing machines have gone out. The kitchen has to be retooled. I'll deal with this when it becomes emergent. Like, what would you say to a camp director or a board who presents that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and that I could get into more detail about our approach at Green Camps and how we're providing that process, but I think it's have a conversation. Again, I'm going to come back to that. That's the first thing that we really encourage camps to, collect data, get some data, spend a little bit of time collecting data to make informed decisions. So if you're going to invest anything in anything, you should be really informed and intentional about doing it. And then once you have a little bit of data to drive some of those decisions, bring community members to the table. So to that camp director who probably has their plate full, who else within your network has a stake and is invested in your campers, the health of your campers, the health and success of your camp moving forward, and invite them into that conversation. Obviously, that camp director is going to need to have a hand in it, but if they can, get the ball rolling and get the team of folks, a green team together to have the conversation, they can really hand off a lot of that stuff and empower other folks to do that. And I think as they see more success, and this is what I've seen in a lot of our camps that we're working with, as they see more success, they prioritize it more.
Yeah.
So that's a short answer. It's a very good question, because there's no doubt, and I never have a conversation with a camp director and mitigate the fact of all the things that are on their plate. Because I've been there. I'm a former camp director, and so I know all the priorities and the plates that were simultaneously spinning that are happening. So I get it, and I understand, and I empathize with those things as well. So I think having the conversation and getting some data to make informed decision making, because if you just start running down paths, then it's not really going to get you anywhere. Well, it might, but you don't know. It's
right.
Not really a scientific approach to it, if you will.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's great. Great answer, actually. Yeah.
Thanks.
Helpful.
One of the things that what you said, Danny, made me think about is there is a lot of government and business in there's a lot of money coming into this. Investment is the word I stumbled over. And camps can be a place, and have often been a place, for trying these things out. I think that camps were the heart of the original environmental education movement. That's how we got this started. And I think we can be a part of that too, where people want to run experiments. We can be the place for them to try out new technologies and do some of these things, like passive cooling, which for those of you who don't know is just a way of not using air conditioning, just using convection currents to bring in cool air into a building or a cabin or sleeping area without a fan and freon and all of those extra pieces involved in that. So there's some of that stuff, electrical savings, et cetera, that I think we can find partners to spread out the cost of it, to be on the cutting edge and to show some leadership as well. Every university I know has some science programs have some kind of research going on in this area.
Yeah, and what a great place to highlight that research. I mean, think about how many millions of youth and adults the camp industry impacts to be able to highlight those things. I talk a lot about biogas digesters. Have either of you heard of biogas digesters before?
Yep.
No.
Tell us.
Biogas digester, it's a way of decomposing waste, but it's aerobic. So there's no oxygen involved. So normally you have like a compost pit, you put all the food and the browns and the greens in there, mix it up, and the FBI, the fungus, bacteria, and insects, they eat it, create heat. That's where the smell comes from sometimes. But that heat and that dance party that's going on in that compost pile is breaking it down. Those fungus, bacteria, and insects are eating it, pooping it out, and that creates that rich nutrients that we can cycle back into that system. So aerobic, it's just a breaking it down without the aid of oxygen in a closed system. So it goes a lot quicker. It's a much more efficient system. The heat gets a lot higher, and you can put a lot more in there. It'll actually break down meats and the dairy proteins and things that we wouldn't normally put in there. But what happens, because it's a closed system, the methane, which is released into the atmosphere otherwise, is captured, and those gases are actually captured in a system that can then be piped into a burner, into a stove, and you can cook on it. So I've seen some small systems that we can highlight. Again, it's a smaller system. They've got massive systems, so you can take a small system and bring it to a camp. They can compost all their food waste, and they can cook on it as well. And it becomes a great educational, engaging opportunity for campers to see those solutions, because I don't think we see enough of these innovative solutions, that the research that innovative companies are coming out with to help address these challenges and get us inspired and get us excited. Because I see your eyes, Chris. I see the excitement.
I mean, it sounds like magic. It sounds like magic. It also sounds expensive, Danny, but it sounds like magic.
Well, and so I thought it was too. I just did a project with NC State. They went and did a program, a campus to camps program is one that we're working to actually connect university students with local camps. So we partner with the university faculty member. They offer the program to students, and the students will actually go consult with the camp to complete our certification program that we've developed. And through that process, one of the graduate students at NC State had been studying biogas digesters, and she had like a DIY homemade biogas digester that was very, very inexpensive. Because yes, the more like industrial ones, they're $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I think hers was maybe a couple $100, $500 or something.
Amazing.
And again, like, what about like a funder to see something like that? I think that's where, kind of going back to what Travis said, like, we can highlight and show the impact of these things and get this technology out there. I think those funders will be all over throwing money at camps to do this stuff.
I love that. I love that. Everything we're talking about is so useful and so important. And I just hate to harp on this, but it's like, getting camps to embrace this today, getting camps to be forward thinking generally is usually uphill. It's not impossible. It's just uphill. And especially like these issues. I don't know. Like I said, I've seen things change in my lifetime. Like, I understand how quickly things can accelerate. I just hope other people like hear that. And well, I know people are experiencing it. I just hope they take it seriously and want to invest in these solutions.
Yeah. Well, it's an uphill battle. I told you how long I've been doing green camps at this point, right? Yeah. It hasn't been all roses and sunshine the whole way through there. It's a challenge because of all the priorities. But what does it are those success stories. When I talk with camp professionals, when I talk with publishers and camp organizations, they want to hear what camps are doing. They want to hear the success stories that camps can show. Because I mean, I remember Gaga, when Gaga first came out. And I brought it out to my
game, not the lady.
The guy, yes, right. The game, not the musician there. Although, I mean, both are good additions to a camp program, I guess. But the Gaga Pit, the dodgeball, it changed the culture of our organization, the
Yep,
entire camp
absolutely.
industry,
Yep.
almost overnight, right?
Yeah.
Now, if composting could catch on like Gaga could, like it would be Gaga. But I
Yeah.
think that's that inspiration, like that's where we're planting seeds, and that's how we're doing this, and that's what we're doing right now, having the conversation and getting the word out. And who knows how many people are listening to this right now that are gonna go get a biogas digester right after they hear this.
Yeah. Yep. That to me is a perfect positive spot to end the discussion part of this. So thank you both for that. I really appreciate that. I want to take 1 second and just thank our other sponsor for this CampHacker episode, the Ultra Camp camp registration, camp management software. If you're a CampHacker listener, you can discover the best marketing tools and apps for camps by visiting ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. And there you can download Ultra Camp's free guide, The Marketing Toolbox. It has been updated for this coming summer. There are more resources in there. When you are thinking about what drew you as a person into camp, it wasn't for sitting at our desk, looking at a computer screen. It wasn't for the paperwork. That is why Ultra Camp knows, and they've created this all-in-one platform to streamline your program management. You can say goodbye to the hassle of learning and managing multiple platforms to run your camp. With Ultra Camp, you can effortlessly register and manage campers, generate and direct communication, organize schedules and activities, process payments, and your donations too. UltraCamp's goal is to help their clients spend less time in the office and more time doing what they love. If you want to know if UltraCamp is right for you, they offer free customized demo sessions so you can see their software in action. Sign up and get that free The Marketing Toolbook guide at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. That means that we are here for our Tool of the Week.
Tool of the week.
I'm going to start us off with my tool today. I have a favorites file in my TikTok account of just tools of the week. And one of the ones that I saw in the last couple of weeks that was really interesting, it definitely applies. And it's not a thing. It's kind of it's a small thing, but it's something to remember in case of an emergency. There was a video from a psychologist who was talking about how one of the things that can help people break away from panic attacks is super sour candy, like Warheads or some of those other ones. The actual sensation, the change in sensation can be enough to start to pull some of the body systems back into a more calm state by sort of breaking through it. And I thought that was fascinating. So another thing to add to our mental health toolkit is to keep super sour candy around for when staff or campers are having some of that some of those problems when things are going on at camp. So I thought that was a really cool one. I'll put the link again, as usual, in our show notes at camphacker.tv/podcast. Chris, what do you have?
I am fairly excited about this because I saw it. This might be old news for some of you, but I saw this the other day and I was like, what is that magic device? So I am recommending a waterproof, windproof, battery chargeable lighter. It uses, I don't know, some sort of magic to actually light whatever you're trying to do. I think it's plasma. They say it's plasma, but I don't know what that means either. Nevertheless,
it's very hot.
It's super hot. Nevertheless, I was like, listen, at camp, it's great if you have to light stuff because you don't have to worry about it running out of fuel. You don't have to worry about the wind. And you just plug it in at night. I saw this and I was like, wow, this is really a new age. We are really in the 21st century. I was promised flying cars when I was young, but I think this is just as good.
Battery lighters.
I ordered 2 for my house just because I was like, I'm never buying a lighter again. So, and they're really affordable. They're like $20, like $15 American. So I would invest in it just to keep it around the house. Great for lighting candles. Screw matches. It's all about these electric lighters. Anyway, also, given that we're talking about climate change, when our camps are underwater and there's heavy, terrible winds, you could still light things on fire, and that will be some comfort in this new dystopia facing us.
And as a camp director who is very bad at lighting fires, I am excited for
Yeah,
this
just
one
throw
because
some plasma on it.
I'm no good at
Apparently.
campfires, so that's awesome. Thank you. Danny, you've got a really cool thing. There's actually a green camps thing that is your tool this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, it's hard to choose just one tool, but this one definitely came to mind. So I published some research at the beginning of the year, and from that research, I was contacted by a staff member at the Environmental Protection Agency, and through their Energy Star program, we have published a co-branded energy and water efficiency checklist for camps and retreats. So the concept is you can take this digitally or print one out, double-sided, and walk around camp and start checking off some of the items to be aware of that will help your organization go green. And this has been one of the first collaborative efforts through Energy Star and the EPA and Green Camps, and many more to come. I'll give a quick plug. On January 16th, we'll be doing a webinar. The Energy Star Partners Program will be hosting that. And our objective is to find ways that we can cross over the work that Energy Star Partners are doing. And Energy Star Partners, for reference, are organizations that have made a commitment and signed on with the Energy Star program through the EPA, representative about 40% of Fortune 500 companies, universities, and other educational institutions that are committed to sustainability. So I think there's a lot of great crossover between these corporate entities and the benefits they can bring from lessons they've learned, as well as collaborations and relationships, and maybe some funding as well as things that we can teach them. So hopefully we can create a good relationship there. But again, that's the energy and water efficiency checklist for camps. Checklists are a good way just to start kind of seeing what your options are.
Yeah, that is a great one. I am looking at it currently, and I think it's really smart. And glad you folks are involved in this too, Danny. So I really appreciate that. Danny, I am so grateful for the work that you do for camps and how good you've been at educating us. And for any camp that's interested, I always appreciate Danny's soft, thoughtful approach to this. He's got tons of great knowledge, but if this feels intimidating, then go to Danny because he can make it unintimidating, and that's great. So I'm super thankful to that. Can you please tell us again how people can get in touch if they want to follow up or they want to be involved in the research that you're doing or get your resources and be a part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all again. It's been a pleasure having this conversation. Greencamps.org is our website. If you check out our contact page, you can find my email. We also have a setup. You can go ahead and get a free consultation. Let's just have a conversation. Let me learn. I love to learn what camps are doing. Let's celebrate your successes. Let's find opportunities for growth. We've got tons and tons of free resources and opportunities to get camps started down that path. I'll also say, come out to, if you're at the National ACA Conference in New Orleans, coming up in February 2024, I'll be exhibiting there along with the Tri-State Conference in Atlantic City. I'll be exhibiting there and presenting education sessions there as well. So lots of ways to connect and, find the simple things that you can do. There's a lot. It can be very intimidating. I think Chris brought that up earlier. It can be very intimidating, but just one step at a time.
Thanks for being a part of the industry discussion, and thanks for talking with us about it today, Danny.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Travis.
Chris, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I can just open up their window and holler. If that doesn't work, you can email me at chris@planetchris.net. You want to follow my exploits around the world? Follow me on Instagram at planetchris1.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. We appreciate it. If people want to get in touch with me, if they have show ideas or comments on shows, you can reach out Travis at gocamp.pro. If you want to get our new book that I mentioned in the intro, you can get that from gocamp.pro at the top of the site. You can see it all there. I want to take 1 second before we say goodbye and highlight the Camp Owners Pod. What Howie and Kelly are doing with the Camp Owners Pod is good for every camp director, not just if you are a camp owner or want to be. They have great guests, really thoughtful thoughtful and intentional stuff. So I hope you use the same app that you are listening to us on, and also subscribe there to the Camp Owners Pod from Go Camp Pro. Thank you both for being here, and thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable. You'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.